we got a little carried away. We brought Rod in during the commercial break and just started cutting up about hip hop a little bit. Rod, I think, was about to unleash the most vicious take in history.
Look, hey, Rod, I appreciate this one too. They said Sexy Red and Sanuki make the City Girls look like the Clark sisters.
Yeah, man.
Wait,
Those two young ladies. Woo-wee. Maybe it's just not for me.
Our man Rob Brooks, kind enough to join us, NBC Sports California. I'm sorry, I just got a text that Rod's going to be on the panel at the Cooperage Live show with our man Kyle Madsen and the enemy known as Chris Biederman this weekend.
The enemy.
Oh, okay. Well, hey, listen, man, I'm just going there to hang out and drink up on some of their beer and talk football and maybe watch a little college football. So, I'm not trying to get in what y'all got going on
No. That's what we love Chris Biederman. He's contractually forbidden from appearing on our show. And of course, Kyle's our guy. But I was a part of the live panel last year. It's a black. Try not to get into any fights with drunk people about black quarterbacks. I'm not going to say that happened to me, but it most certainly did, which is why Kyle didn't invite me back. And I'm not a big beer guy, but the beer there is fantastic.
What you say about Warren Moon?
Hey, I told this young dude that Patrick Mahomes was black, and he was flabbergasted. He was flabbergasted.
Hey, dog! Wait till you hear about Mike Tirico.
Hey, wait till Mike Tirico hear about Mike Tirico. Okay. I'm sorry.
Hey, Google it. It'll make sense if you don't know.
Hey, first of all, though, I got to give a shout out to Rob, man, because I hope I don't make you sound old here, but I remember I was an adult, but I was like young adult, like 21, 22 or whatever. I was working for the state. I would listen to radio every day during my job, and I think something happened one day where the show I normally listen to wasn't on, and I was like, let me see what's on 1050. And like you came back from a commercial with like gin and juice playing. I said, what is this? I checked my phone, my computer. I was like, did I go to the wrong station? And then I heard this brother talking about sports. I said, what is this? I hadn't heard that before, right? And from that, like seeing that and seeing you and what you did, particularly in the show that you had by yourself, no shade to the one that you had later, but the one that you had by yourself, it made me say, like, I could do this. Like, there is a spot for me to do this. And I know you was way before your time, so you were breaking barriers when you were doing that, man.
Man, when I was doing it, I was young and really didn't know what I was doing. So I was just kind of doing it, and I was just kind of doing me. And I really had nothing to lose because like I knew what I was doing. I just didn't exactly know what I was doing. So I was like, listen, man, I'm on this radio station that maybe only a few people are hearing. It wasn't the big one. So I was like, I was just going to be me. And it worked. There were a lot of people like yourself and many others who it just gravitated to. But at the time, man, I wasn't thinking it. I was just a dude on the radio just trying to, keep a job, but also, give my point of view in a very crowded and a very crowded Bay Area landscape. Yeah. But, now as I have gotten older and more people have said things like that, first off, man, it makes me feel so good because, like I said, I wasn't thinking about breaking barriers or nothing. I was just a cat trying to do his thing. But as I have gotten older, I've been very appreciative of people who said things like that, what you said or something similar, or, just liking what I did or what I did with, maybe Bob Fitzgerald or even Rick Barry and back in the day, just to name a couple of guys. But I have definitely embraced my OG status, man. And it's not because I'm like, yeah, that's where I am. That's where I should be. I'm just so thankful that people appreciated what I did, what I do, and they still think that, I'm somebody worth listening to. So I really do appreciate it.
And what's amazing about everything Rod just said is how often do you and how many years ago was that you heard Rod on the radio and thought, oh, I could do this?
Yeah. People while ago. I ain't gonna put the number out there.
It's well over 20 years ago, without a doubt.
People say that to us at G1C now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We still there.
Yeah. Right.
We still the same.
Right. Thing. Like we like the only ones. You know what I'm saying? Like it's crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That radio connection though, and especially on a molecular level, when people put the face to the voice and then all of a sudden they realize, wow, we have shared experiences, man, that's what makes this medium work. And that's what makes this medium, that's what's not going to kill it. You know what I mean? Because that personal connection between the voice of the person who's talking and the ears and the brains and the heart of the people who's listening, that's an unbreakable bond. I really believe that.
Yeah, and it's great to meet people for the first time. Oh, D'Lo, I thought you were darker.
I didn't know you looked like that. All the time, or some variation of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know you were black, or some variation of that. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, let's dive into this game tomorrow night. I'm going to flip the script on you a little bit. Instead of asking you about the 49ers, what do you think about the Giants? They went down 60-0 on the season before scoring some points in the second half against the Cardinals, and it was kind of walking away with like, all right, you're 1-1, but I don't know what to think of you.
I think they came to prominence to the playoffs their season last year a year too early. I think they had a little bit too much dip on their chip. As much as I dislike the Cowboys, and as crazy as what I'm about to say is, ain't no shame in getting worked by the Cowboys. Now, how they got worked and the amount that they lost to the Cowboys, too, yeah, there is no honor in that. But the Cowboys, again, I don't like saying it, but you got to keep it real. The Cowboys are a good team. Yeah. The thing with the Cardinals, they were just sleepwalking through that 100%. And the Cardinals being the Cardinals who are actively trying to tank, the Cardinals eventually showed who they are. When it gets down to it, who you are, good or bad, is going to show up. And when it got down to it in the fourth quarter, the Cardinals being bad, that showed up. But I think for the Giants, just structurally, they're young in a lot of key places. They got 2 rookie cornerbacks and a couple of second-year linebackers. Thibodeau is in there, a couple other guys who are young. Kyle Shanahan is just going to pick those guys apart. He loves to put linebackers in conflict. And obviously what the Niners have, whether Brandon Ayuk plays or not, just the way Kyle schemes guys open, those 2 young rookie cornerbacks for the Giants are just going to be put in an absolute blender. Daniel Jones, he's been at it for a while, but he's still a young quarterback. He's still young in the game. I just think, just overall, there's just way too much youth on that Giants team for them to deal with the prosperity of last year and the expectations that come along with that prosperity. Hey, man, you got to go out there and do it again. And they had to do it right off the bat against the Cowboys, and they just weren't ready.
Yeah, it's one of those things you hear a lot of people talk about. You hear it a lot in the NBA, but I think it applies to the NFL as well. It's easy to go from C to B. To go from B to A is a whole different ball game. And it felt like they just thought that if we just show up this year, we're naturally going to go to B to A. And Cowboys let them know it wasn't that easy. And they also got alerted by the Cardinals, like, you can't take anybody for granted because we'll put 28 on your head at any point. So I agree with you with the youth. What do you think about Daniel Jones? I like him more than most people do. I think he's an all right quarterback. He's cool, but I don't know if he's the type of quarterback that a defense like the 49ers should necessarily fear. Like, I don't know if he has that type of game to him where he can just take over a game, light up a defense that's that good, and put the Giants on his back to win a game in San Francisco. But what you think about Daniel Jones?
I want to steal something from Bomani Jones. Daniel Jones has deceptive speed, if you catch what I'm saying, right? No, Daniel Jones is an athlete. Daniel Jones can move. Yeah. Daniel Jones, I don't want to say he's fast, but he's a dude that can run in today's NFL, which I guess, by definition makes you fast because ain't no slow guys in the NFL. Even the big dudes are fast. I say all that to say this. Daniel Jones is a running quarterback. He ain't Lamar Jackson, but he's also not a statue back there. And the one problem the Niners have had over these last few years with the successes that they've had, what's the one thing they've had a problem with? Dealing with running quarterbacks. Daniel Jones is a running quarterback. And Steve Wilkes said, they tried to work on some things in the preseason in terms of dealing with running quarterbacks, read options or whatever, and they didn't do it well. And they put some bad tape out there in the preseason dealing with running quarterbacks, and that's something they're going to have to deal with starting tomorrow night against the Giants. So in terms of Jones just kind of being a drop back quarterback in the traditional sense, even though that is eroding in today's NFL, yeah, you wouldn't think of him beating you in that regard. But if he uses his athleticism, if the scheme is right, the opposing defense is not right, he can use his athleticism to get things going and then start to do things in a traditional way. So I don't want to say that this is this is going to be a must win or a tough game for the Niners. I guess they're all tough games because it's the NFL, but it's one they got to be on point with. And I think it's a real sneaky matchup with the Niners coming off a game where they had to fight against the Rams. Now you got to turn around and do it again on Thursday against a somewhat unconventional guy that has given you problems before, over now going to 3 different defensive coordinators. I think this is one of those bad boys. You got to keep your head on a swivel if you're the Niners. You make a couple of mistakes, the next thing you know, you're in the fourth quarter and you're fighting like the Cardinals.
You're right. You mentioned the quick turnaround there. How much is the mentality different for the players and pads, the coaches, going from a Sunday to a Thursday?
Well, the thing about the NFL and guys, and teams, they see so far ahead is that the game plan, whatever it is, they had already taken care of that probably in the preseason at some point in time in the preseason, knowing that they were going to have this short amount of time. You can't win a game on Sunday. Now all of a sudden, the hell are we going to do Thursday? That bad boy's already got to be in the binder, and you already got to be getting ready to present that to the players. Dante Whitner, who we do the show with on NBC Sports Bay Area in California, being a former player, he said, listen, you kind of really just going out there, not necessarily winging it, but there are no traditional practices, anything of that nature. You had a real brief walkthrough yesterday. You got a bit of an install of practice today. And then really it's about getting off your feet and just getting ready for Thursday. And so it's a physical thing and a mental thing. But in terms of being prepared for the Giants are at a disadvantage, just like the Niners are at a disadvantage. But if you do your homework and that plan is ready to go before you get to this point, then you're not necessarily dealing with the ramp up time to get ready to do what you need to do out there. So, they got a system, they got it on lock. They're used to it. But this is the problem with Thursday Night Football, is that it puts both competitors at a disadvantage. And a lot of time that manifests itself in terms of what we see on TV or what we see in person. The football isn't all that great. Well, it's because they haven't had time to prepare or practice, or more to the point, haven't had time to recover from that 3.5-hour car crash the Sunday prior.
Rob,
to be fair, that crap we watched on Monday wasn't that
oh,
good
that
either.
was nasty.
Oh,
Both of them games was nasty.
I don't know what the Panthers Saints excuse was. I don't know what in the name of Thursday Night Football that was.
There's nothing worse than having 2 dumpster fires running simultaneously. But what did we do? We watched them both at the same time. I got YouTube TV. Yeah. I was on that multi-view man, this stink. But I'm watching it like this.
Exactly.
I need a third screen to pull up The Office or something. I need to pull up BET or something. I'm just sitting here watching these 2 games.
Absolutely, man. Rob Burks, NBC Sports Bay Area, pre- and post-game for the 49ers. And just, media legend. I'm going to just say it, man. I'm saying it. Media legend.
Yeah, I'm going to say it too.
Brock Purdy, are we at the point, maybe it's just 2 games, I understand that, but are we at the point where we can say, all right, worst case scenario, Brock Purdy's good? Like, is he really good? Is he that dude? We'll find that out a little bit more, but I think the floor for Brock Purdy is he's good. What do you think about him now?
I want to go back to when he took over, and then 2 or 3 games after that. So he comes in, and what was it? The Miami game in for Garoppolo, and he in essence started and won that game for them. Then it was a couple after that. I remember going on the post-game show after the Miami game, and then post-game show after that one, another game that they won. And it was just like, I don't want to fall victim to recency bias, but the boy pretty good, right? And so we're at the games at Levi's, and the press box is 60 to 80 feet above the field. So you see everything. And the one thing you notice about a Kyle Shanahan offense is that really on every snap, somebody's open. Somebody is literally wide open. Now, that guy might be 5 yards away from you. He might be 25 yards away from you, but somebody is always open in that scheme. Brock Purdy did 2 things right off the bat. First thing he did is he started throwing the ball to George Kittle, which ain't the worst idea in the world. Then he started cooking on that second intermediate level, which is something he has done. We've seen now a couple of times. We've seen him do in these couple of games this season. So I say all that to say this. He can play quarterback in this league for Kyle Shanahan. And if you can play quarterback for Kyle Shanahan, then you're a good quarterback. because we know that Kyle Shanahan has a certain type of quarterback in his mind. And whatever that quarterback is, that guy has to be absolutely adherent to Kyle's system. And Kyle's system is dude's going to be open, or there's going to be opportunities on the second level, and it's your job to hit him. And what Purdy does compared to Garoppolo, just to bring him in for comparison's sake, is that Purdy can move in space. He can move physically, and he can move his eyes and his head to move defenders, and he will attack that second level. So now you got a guy who can do things that are at the line of scrimmage or behind. He can move, he can run to get either himself open or for positive yards as the play breaks down, but he's attacking down the field and using the scheme and using all of those weapons that the Niners have at his disposal. So I say all that to say this. Yeah, man, he can play. He can absolutely play in this league. Because again, if you can play for Kyle Shanahan and you can have success, you are dealing with one of the toughest jobs in the NFL. And so far, that cat has not had one misstep whatsoever. So, hey, man, what I was trying to be like, I don't want to get on the hype train too quick.
Yeah.
I guess I'm on the hype train now because I feel like we've seen enough games to where we go, all right, we know
At
what
some
this
point
guy
it's not
can do.
hype.
At some point, it's not hype, man. I mean, it's and listen, I say this all the time because I learn this from athletes. All right, you do this long enough, you work around enough professional athletes, you shut up, you learn some things. In football, speaking specifically of football, this might be a whole sports thing, but speaking specifically of football, when a team loves a guy, they talk about him. Okay, they talk about him openly, and they talk about him at times unprompted. When a team does not like a guy, and I'm just talking from football playing only, not anything beyond that. When they don't like a guy, when they don't think he can play, they don't say anything about him. Right. They talk about Brock Purdy a lot, and it's all positive. It's all glowing. Other guys, not gonna mention no names, but they weren't down with him. Just from a football standpoint, did they run him down in public? Absolutely not. Did they go out of their way to praise him and lift him up? Absolutely not.
Yeah, I smell what you're cooking.
How about so this isn't this isn't to take away from Brock Purdy,
right?
But it's to kind of, I guess, just speak to how dynamic this offense is. They haven't missed since Christian McCaffrey arrived. So how much of what we're seeing, and maybe this is just impossible to lay out, but how much of what we're seeing is Christian McCaffrey versus Brock Purdy, or is it some combination of Christian McCaffrey and Brock Purdy where this is all working in the beautiful Kyle Shanahan bubble?
Christian McCaffrey is the best player on that Niner offense. Christian McCaffrey is the guy that makes it go. And pardon me for this comparison, because I understand who I'm talking to and where you guys are. Christian McCaffrey is Steph Curry for that offense.
Chill.
I knew it, but hey, listen, I got it.
Thanks for joining us, Rob. We really appreciate you being with us.
Nah. You ain't gonna get ready to be like that. No. Understand what I'm saying. All right. Understand what I'm saying. That's why he played 100% of the snaps on Sunday, McCaffrey. He had to be out there because that's the threat. As good as Purdy is and has been, as great as Ayuk is, even though he was compromised, Samuel and Kittle, what those guys give you, Christian McCaffrey is the dude that can do it all. And when he's on the field, that's the guy you're most worried about. So yeah, McCaffrey coming in with Brock basically at the same time. Yes, Brock's ascension has a lot to do with what Christian McCaffrey brings. The guy is undeniable. He's absolutely undeniable. You can do so many things with him. You can use him as a traditional back, or you can use him in untraditional ways, as we know Kyle Shanahan likes to do. He's a nightmare for opposing offenses. And if they're worried about McCaffrey, then they're not worried about Kittle. Or then they're maybe, then they're not, I shouldn't say not worried about Ayuk, but they can't devote as much attention to him as they could, because you can't guard everybody. And you got that one guy in the backfield that can do absolutely everything. So yeah, and Brock Purdy would tell you this, that Christian McCaffrey makes his life significantly easier. He is that good.
Yeah. Sounds like De'Aaron Fox to me. I don't know what Rob said.
You know what? Exactly.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you for that.
Yo, Rod. So I'm a Niners fan. You know, been a Niners fan. I don't hide it on there. Everybody knows who I'm riding with or whatever. And we've been doing the show for 3 years. And every year, I think the Niners can do this. I think they can win the Super Bowl. They can get numbers. I think they can do this, right? It was always if they stay healthy, if Jimmy does this, they can do it. And Damien will tell you, this is the first year where I've said, no, they're the best team. They're going to win the Super Bowl. And it just seems like they finally have everything they need. Now it's the NFL, it's one game in the playoffs, injuries, all this other stuff. We saw Aaron Rodgers, like those things can happen. I'm speaking if everything they stay relatively healthy. They're the best team. They're going to win. You've seen this team for the last couple of years. Do you feel like this team is different than the last couple of years?
I don't. Well, it's different than the last couple of years because now you're going to have Christian McCaffrey for a full 17-game regular season. But taking him out of the picture, they're not that much different. But here's the thing. They were a Super Bowl contender before Christian McCaffrey. You add him in, you go to the NFC Championship game last year. A blown elbow ligament possibly keeps you away from actually getting to the Super Bowl. So I think where they're different this year is, again, full year of McCaffrey, but also full confidence at that quarterback spot. Because let's take the Trey Lance discussion out. They rode with Jimmy Garoppolo because, and not that they didn't have a choice, but he was the best that they could do. But everybody knew what his limitations were, and his limitations showed up basically on a game-by-game basis. But he could do enough, and everybody around him, specifically the defense, could do enough for them to win. I think the difference with this Snyder team this year, as good as that defense is, and I think it could get back to where it was last year and be very good or great. I think this year, the offense at times, and I thought they were going to have to do it this past Sunday in LA, the offense at times is going to eclipse the defense because they need to, because they have to, or just because the game works out that way. The firepower, as crazy as it sounds, when you have Bosa and you have Warner on that defense and Javon Hargrave and Treverius Ward, you have all of those all-pro, Pro Bowl, all-time type guys. But the firepower is on that offense. So I think the difference is that, yeah, this offense is going to be at times the tip of the spear, where last year it was really the defense, getting it done, and the offense would vibe off of that. If I didn't do what I did for a living, okay, if I had nothing to do with the Niners and not doing the pre and post game show, I would say what I'm about to say to you right now. And I mean this absolutely. The Niners are going to go to the Super Bowl. Now, who they play in the Super Bowl, that's going to dictate in my mind whether they're going to be able to win it or lose it. And this has nothing to do with my dislike on a molecular level of the Dallas Cowboys. The Niners are the absolute best team in the NFC. All they have to do is play like it. And they have issues. They got to find that edge rusher on the other side of Bosa. I'm a little worried about the cornerback situation, the nickelback situation. It was nice to see Isaiah Oliver have the game that he had, but on the other side of Mooney Ward, we're going to have to see. And let's face it, Mooney Ward didn't have his best game against LA this past Sunday. So the back end, I'm a little worried about it. But the front end and the front seven, it's going to be great. It's going to be absolutely
sold on Drake
awesome.
Jackson yet?
It's not that I'm not sold on him. I just want to see a little bit more.
Okay.
I want to see a little bit more. Those 3 sacks, he didn't luck into them. He did what he's supposed to do. Everybody else on that defensive line was kicking ass and taking names. It was his job to go in there and finish them off. Hey, if that's how it works, that's how it works. But in terms of Drake Jackson being that dude on the other side of Bosa, just working his guy one-on-one, or maybe having the other squad have to pay attention to him with another offensive lineman or a chip, Drake Jackson's just not at that point. But it is a nice start. But I will say this. It's been a surprise that Jackson and Kinlaw in particular, over these first 2 games, those dudes have come in and have provided what they needed, in the absence of Bosa really getting back there and getting those sack numbers.
Rod, we appreciate you. If there's an account executive that works in this building listening, maybe sell a Rod Brooks segment because, the Chatty House is screaming for you to come back regularly.
We don't have to sell it. I mean, yes, sell a segment. But no, man, we let's get this money. Don't get me wrong. I'll get y'all the money. But hey, man, I'd be more than happy to come on anytime. I love radio. to a certain extent, I miss radio. I didn't realize how much I missed it until I started hanging out with you guys here over the past 10, 15 minutes or whatever it is. So it ain't got to be, on some, hey, man, sponsor segment. Anytime you guys want to chop it up, whether it's about the Niners or we can get into the music discussion we had before the mics went hot.
Yeah.
Anytime you guys want to chop it up, y'all let me know.
Hey, Rob, we appreciate
you the man,
you,
Rob.
Thank
Absolutely.
you, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it.